Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video we're going to take a look at Race for the Galaxy. Race for the Galaxy is basically a role selection game based off Puerto Rico but set in space. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, and I'll finish with some closing remarks.
This is Race for the Galaxy, set up for a 3-player game. To set it up, you give each player a start world at random, which they put face up in front of themselves. The start worlds are really easy to identify because they have these big numbers in the corner. The rest of them just get shuffled into the deck. And you give each player a hand of 6 cards. That's for their eyes only. Next, you take 12 victory points out per player. So we have 3 players, so that's 36 points. And you give each player a set of the 7 action cards. In a 2-player game, players actually get a set of 9, but for 3 or up, it's going to be 7. So that's what we're going to be discussing here. To begin the game, players look at their hand of 6 and actually discard 2 of the cards face down. They're only going to start the game with 4 cards, and all discards in this game are face down. The game is played over rounds where players simultaneously select which actions they're going to use in secret and all reveal at the same time. If an action is chosen, that phase of the game will happen this turn, otherwise it will not. Whoever selected the action will get a bonus, and the bonuses are written on these action cards, but we'll also go over them in a moment. At the end of a turn, players are going to have to discard down to 10 cards if they have more than 10 cards in their hand, and the game ends when someone builds their 12th building at the end of that round, or if all the victory points are exhausted. So let's talk about the game turn. In a game turn, each player secretly chooses one of the action cards in their hand. It's actually going to be 2 in a 2-player game, but in a 3 or 4 or 5-player game, it's 1 each. So they'll put that down, and everybody will do that, and they'll reveal them at the same time. Whatever actions are revealed, those phases are going to happen. It's possible that only one phase happens in a turn if all players play the same card. Otherwise, they would always go in order, so 1 and then 2, 3, trade, 4, and 5. So let's first talk about Explore. There's actually 2 action cards in your pile for Explore. In either case, the same default action is each player draws 2 cards and keeps 1. But there's 2 different bonuses you can get. If you can see it here, this allows the player who played this card to draw 5 extra cards, so they'll actually draw 7, but still only keep 1. And this one allows the player to draw 1 extra card and keep 1 extra card. So if they played that, they would draw 3 and keep 2. It's important to understand that when you pick an action, everybody gets to take it. So everybody is going to draw in that case. There are some cards in the game that after you build them or have them in front of you, they give you benefits during that particular phase. So we know this is phase 1. So in this example, you would get to keep 1 extra card if you had Research Labs in front of you. And if you had Expedition Force, you get to look at 1 extra card. And that stacks with your bonuses, so you can go above and beyond. Next is the development phase, and the development phase is when you're going to build some development style cards. And development style cards have a diamond in the corner. So example is, this is a development card. The cost of that card is listed inside. So this one would be a cost of 1, and the victory point value of that card for having in front of you is 1. If you pick the development action, you get to pay 1 less. And the way you pay is you discard cards from your hand. So if the development phase comes up, everybody puts face down a card they want to build. It has to be a development card, which is, again, the diamond shape. If you don't want to build any, you don't have to put anything down. And players reveal at the same time and pay from their hand. And again, the cards you discard are going to be face down. And like all other phases, there's some cards that once you build them, they give you some benefits in that phase. Just a couple examples would be this one. After you build a development during the development phase, you get to draw a card. This one is an additional 1 off, so this would again stack with your bonuses, but you can never go below a cost of 0. But this would work even if you didn't pick the phase yourself. And then there's these that just draw. So as soon as that phase happens, at the beginning of it, you get to draw a card. And the third phase is Settle. And Settle is when you play worlds in front of you. And unlike developments, worlds are circular. So the 3 starting worlds here are all worlds. And it works the same way. You're going to put it face down, and you're going to flip it, and then you're going to pay its cost. If the world has a black outline, you discard cards to pay that cost. As you can see here, the circle on the outside is black. This one actually has a red circle on the outside, so we're going to talk about it in a second, but you cannot discard cards to conquer those regions. You must conquer them with military force, and these are colonized by discarding cards. So the simple way is anything with a black outline, even though this kind of has like a halo effect around it, you still build it the same way because it's a black outline. So you discard the cards. And if you played this, no matter what you did, if it's military or otherwise, you draw a card after you colonize or conquer a territory. So the military you'll see some cards add military. This one actually gives you military strength of 2. In order to conquer military worlds, you must meet or exceed the military value of that area. But the good news is if you do, you get to build it for free. It doesn't cost you any discards. Now, some worlds have this halo around the outside like this, and these are called windfall worlds. Windfall worlds don't normally produce, and you will understand that more in a moment. But windfall worlds, when they're built or conquered, they immediately get a good placed on them. The way you do that is you take the top card of the deck and you put it there. That's why this start world starts with a good on it. And goods can be sold during future turns or converted to points, and we'll explain that in a moment. The next phase is the consume phase. And again, this is another phase with 2 cards. There's kind of this intermediary trade card, and what that does is before you get to the consuming part of your turn, you have the option to sell 1 good. You'll see some cards benefit. This gives you 1 extra card for selling. And there's other cards like, even though this is a green production world, it gives you 3 extra cards for selling a blue good, 1 extra card for selling anything there. And this one gives you 1 extra card for selling off of it. And it's also important to note that this is a military windfall world. So there's no restriction on what can be a military world and what is just a regular world that you colonize. So if you have goods, you can sell them, and they're always the type of good at the place they are. So if we were to sell off of Alpha Centauri, it would be a brown good. Blue goods sell for 2 resources, brown for 3, green for 4, and yellow for 5. So that's how many cards you get to draw when you sell that type of resource, plus any modifiers. You only get to trade if you were the one who picked this. Otherwise, when someone picks trade, it goes right into the consuming part of the phase. And there's also another card that's going to multiply your points in the consume phase by 2. So there's different consuming powers. Consuming is one of the interesting phases in the game because it's the only game you actually need cards in front of you with abilities to do. So right now, if we're in this starting situation, you'll notice no consume power, no consume power. Only this player actually has the ability to consume. Unfortunately, he has no resources, so he wouldn't be able to do so. This is up to 2 times. It has that 2x there. He can sell any color resource for 1 point. And you would just, if he was the same as this player, he would take this and sell it. He doesn't have to be on the same location as the place with the consume world. But consume powers are totally mandatory. If you can do them, you must do them, but you can pick the order that they're done in. Here's some examples. Another one that's times 3. You can sell a blue good. Now this, you don't get any points, but when you sell a color good, you draw 2 cards. And this is any 2 resources for 3 points, which can be very valuable. It's important to note that unless it has a number indicating you can do it more than once, you can only do it once. And the last phase of the round is the production phase. And in this phase, everybody produces in all of their solid colored production worlds, like Artist Colony. You can see right here, it produces 1 good. It's a solid blue colored world. And whoever picks produce, the bonus you get is you get to produce on 1 additional windfall world. So everybody produces in everything they can, and then they get +1 windfall world. But all worlds are limited to 1 resource. So even if you were able to produce on this, it already has a resource on it, so you cannot do so at that time. After we go through all the phases based on what cards players have played, they get their action cards back, and we count the number of cards in each player's hand. Any player with more than 10 cards has to discard down to 10, and then we check if the game is over. Again, the game ends if somebody has 12 cards in their tableau or the victory points are out. At that point, you add up the number of points you have with the value of each of your worlds and developments, plus some 6-cost buildings. Now, there are some 6-cost developments that give you points at the end of the game. For example, this gives 2 points per production world you have, but no points per windfall world. And this one over here gives you a point for every military strength you have. So those can be very, very important to the end of the game, but at 6 cost, they're pretty expensive. Let's get going with our playthrough. Remember, the first thing players do is discard down to 4 cards, and they do that face down. So this player is going to discard these 2, this player is going to discard these 2, and this player is going to discard these 2. Not thinking about it too much at this point, but let's get going. So each player plays face down a card for the phase that he or she wants to do this turn, and then we reveal them all at the same time. And their hands, of course, are face down in their possession, and so are their action cards. But we just want to make this real easy. So we lay out what we got. We've got 2 explorers and a development. So those are the only phases that are going to happen this turn. And the player who played each one gets a particular bonus. So explorer phase, the red player and the green player are each going to get one extra card and one extra kept card. So each of them gets 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And this player over here gets 2. So then each player discards 1 back. And we do that one first because it's phase 1. So phase 1 comes before phase 2. If there was lots of cards out there, they would always go in order down these cards. So phase 2 is develop. Yellow gets to pay 1 less for any card he wishes to develop, but everybody else has to pay the full price. So this player decides he doesn't want to develop, so he doesn't put anything in front of him. This player would like to develop, but he just doesn't have enough money right now. And by money, I mean cards in hand. And this player over here puts this face down. So he's the only one who did it, so he flips. He has to pay 1, but he gets to pay 1 less, so he builds this for free. And now all future developments he make are going to cost 1 less. Each player gets these back. We check everybody's hand for 10 cards, which at this point nobody is really near, and everybody selects another card. Okay, everybody's selected their cards, so we flip them up. We got trade in the consume phase specifically, explore, and settle. So explore we know is going to go first because it's phase 1, then settle, then consume. So this player played it with an extra 1 card, an extra keep, so he gets 3 cards, he gets to keep 2. This player gets 2, gets to keep 1, and this player gets 2, gets to keep 1. And then we move on to settle. So the player who played settle, when he settles, he's going to get to draw 1 extra card afterward. This player is going to put a card face down. This player would really, really like to settle this for free, but unfortunately only has 2 military at this time, and this costs 3. So he's decided he's not going to settle anything right now, and this player over here decides to put a card face down. So this player flips. He still has to pay 2. He doesn't get any discount. And then afterward, because he gets the bonus, he draws a card. And this is a windfall world, so he gets a good put face up on it. Over here, this guy flips, and his cost for his building is 1, so he just discards 1 card. And last is consume, but it starts with the trade. Even though this player would love to sell this good, he didn't play this, so he doesn't get the trade bonus. Over here, this player does get the trade bonus since he played it, so he sells this good for 3 cards. Brown is worth 3 cards, so he gets them to his hand. Now everybody consumes, and remember, consume is mandatory. So this player didn't want to consume this. He wanted to save this for next turn to sell it like the yellow player did, but because he has a consume power here, he consumes that for 1 point. So he takes 1 victory point. Okay, we're going to move ahead to the final situation. So now at the end of the game, we just count up the points, and the player with the most wins. So let's start with this player. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 17 points just in his developments and worlds. 22, 24, 26, 28, 29, counting his victory points, and then we got to do his 6 cost buildings. We'll start with Pan-Galactic League, which is 2 points per green world and green windfall world. So 31, 33, 35, 37. 1 point for each other military world. So that's this one only. That's 38. And 3 points for the contact specialist, which he has. So that's 41. This next one over here is 2 points for each development with a consume power. This one has it itself, so that's 43. None of the others do, but he gets 1 point for each world with a consume power, so that's 44, 45. And lastly, we have Galactic Imperium, which is 2 points for each rebel world. Here's one right there. It says rebel, nice and clear, so that's 47, and 1 point for each other military world, 48, 49 points.
I really enjoy Race for the Galaxy, and it definitely lives up to its name. You're in space, and you're essentially racing to fill your tableau and collect as many victory points as fast as possible. There's some natural comparisons between this game and another popular card game, San Juan, because they're both somewhat based off of board game Puerto Rico. One of the main differences here is that the role selection in this game is simultaneous, and that really adds a pretty neat element of trying to read what your opponents are going to do to benefit as much as possible from your own action and what they throw out on the board. One of the gripes about this game is some people find the iconography very hard to grasp at first, but the gameplay itself is very simple, and the book has all the icons laid out in it, so I strongly recommend taking a look at that at least before you play. It certainly helps to know the cards in the deck, but there's a great board game website, Board Game Arena, where you can try this game out. They have a really nice implementation of it if you're not really sure, you're on the fence, but this is one that I think would be great for a lot of people. Check it out. It's Race for the Galaxy. Thanks for watching.